Consider the decision of Lambeth Council to impose a community charge more than 4 times as high as that imposed in neighbouring Wandsworth. Is my right honourable friend aware that in Merton, where there was a change of control last year, community charge payers will pay 50% more this year than then, whilst the Leader of the Opposition can look forward to a 10% reduction in his community charge? Does this not show that Conservative councils give value for money, whilst Labour councils squander money?
It is, I think, what one has come to expect from Lambeth Council, and indeed a number of others. One might say it was Labour local government in action, if indeed they're not on strike at present.
Mr. Speaker, can the Prime Minister tell us whether he still takes satisfaction from the leading part that he played in introducing the poll tax?
As the right honourable gentleman knows, we are reviewing the community charge, yes, and he will be interested to know we're making good progress and on track for the announcement.
Mr. Speaker, why is the Prime Minister so coy about his poll tax past? Wasn't he the man who said just last Friday, "I think I'm clear in my own mind which way we're going on the poll tax"? So can he tell us today, does he want the floor tax or the roof tax? The bed and breakfast tax or the bedroom tax? The capital value tax or the extension tax? Does he want one tax or 2 taxes? Surely he can tell us what he wants.
The right honourable gentleman will find out the answers to those questions before too long. And when he does, perhaps having introduced a roof tax some months ago, he can tell us now what will be the average rate bill under his tax, even in his constituency. How much will people in the Midlands and South have to pay extra under his proposals? How many people will be eligible for rebates under his tax? None of those questions can he provide the answer to.
Mr. Speaker.
Order.
From that answer, it's obvious that the Prime Minister hasn't yet made up his mind about making up his mind. Why doesn't he do the sensible thing, abolish the poll tax completely, which is what the whole of Britain wants, and introduce a new system? Oh, very interesting. Very interesting. Oh, yes. But despite his honourable friends and their enthusiasm for the hated poll tax, introduce a system calculated on the basis of property and charged according to the ability to pay. A fair system, Labour Party policy.
The right honourable gentleman will find out soon enough. But as for Labour Party policy, was it not the same right honourable gentleman who said about that they would produce several different tax bases and bung the figures into a computer?
Mr. Peter Thurnham.
Number 2, sir.
Number 2.
I refer my honourable friend to the answer I gave some moments ago.
Thurnham.
Does my right honourable friend agree that children need protection not only from abusers, but from officials who fail to carry out proper procedures? And would he instruct local authorities to use some common sense instead of secret dawn raids on innocent families?
As my honourable friend may know, my honourable friend the Minister of Health has said that firmer guidance will be issued this summer to local authorities. And of course the new Children's Act does come into force this October, and that will ensure that the welfare of children is paramount. All these steps, I hope, will make it less likely that another situation like that in Rochdale will occur in future.
Mr. Barry Ashton.
May I congratulate the Prime Minister on the sea change in both tone and substance of his European speech last night. Is he aware that if he does as he says, place Britain at the heart of Europe, play a constructive part in the steps towards a single currency, political and foreign policy integration, then he can count on the united support of these benches, even if he has to cope That's on his own.
Well, it's a generous offer, but I'm not sure it's a fair swap. There are, I think, only three ways to go in the community: to lead, which is unthinkable; to stand aside and let ourselves be dragged along by others, which is untenable; or to be at the very heart of the community and help frame the decisions, and that is our policy.
Mr. Cyril Townsend.
Number 3, sir.
I refer my honourable friend to the answer I gave some moments ago.
Mr. Cyril Townsend.
During my right honourable friend's admirably timed talks with the Crown Prince in Kuwait last week, what assurance was he given about the protection of the large Palestinian community in that country and on future democratic developments in Kuwait? Secondly, bearing in mind the Kuwaiti police force was destroyed by the Iraqis, is Britain going to play a part in rebuilding it? And will we be playing some part also in training the Kuwaiti defence forces so that they can play their full part in the excellent plans for the Gulf recently agreed in Damascus?
I did raise the first part of my honourable friend's question with the Crown Prince when I met last week. He gave me a very firm assurance, which he has subsequently repeated to others in public and in private, that the Kuwaiti authorities would not tolerate retaliation against Palestinians. And in the present circumstances in Kuwait, it is obviously difficult for the government to exert control, but I understand that law and order has, to a very large extent, now been restored. In reply to the second part of my honourable friend's question, we would be prepared to provide the training which he suggests, as we have done in the past. We are discussing the terms and conditions with the Kuwaiti government.
Douglas Hoyle.
Will the Prime Minister, though, stop darting, dithering and dodging? And will he tell us that he's ready for turning by announcing the abolition of the poll tax, which he knows is unfair, unworkable, and as he knows to its cost, is unpopular as well?
As I have explained to the honourable gentleman, he will not have long to wait for those answers.
Mr. Tim Devlin.
Number 4, sir.
I refer my honourable friend to the answer I gave some moments ago.
Mr. Devlin.
If the government's policy is to stand up for small nations which are invaded by their larger neighbours, and the policy is to prevent atrocities and the trampling of cultures underfoot by invaders, why won't my right honourable friend meet the Dalai Lama when he visits the UK next week?
The Dalai Lama is visiting the UK on a private visit, and there have been no conditions imposed by the government. I had no wish to be discourteous to a distinguished spiritual leader. I understand my right honourable and learned friend, the Lord Chancellor, will be seeing the Dalai Lama at a meeting he will be chairing.
Mr. Dick Douglas.
I refer the honourable gentleman to the answer I gave some moments ago.
Dick Douglas.
To find some time today to reflect on the words he used yesterday about producing a more tolerant, a more efficient and a more just society, and answer how these words relate to the continued imposition of the poll tax on the people of Scotland. And would he relate them, and instead of disparaging votes cast against him and his party as votes cast into a dustbin, would he not do better to look back on the votes that were cast in Scotland against his poll tax in 1987? How can he possibly justify continuing to impose this tax on people who are on income support and on students? Would the best thing not be to cast the poll tax into the dustbin?
Well, if the honourable gentleman will endure with the same patience as his honourable friend, he will soon know the answer. Perhaps I might come to Garskadden and make a speech about the matter there.
Mr. Budgen.
Mr. Speaker, may I congratulate my right honourable friend on the good relations that he has achieved with Herr Kohl, demonstrating that it does not need there to be ill will where there are differences of interest. But will he give the House and the nation leadership and tell us whether he personally favours a single currency or not?
As I have said to my honourable friend on previous occasions, we have set out in detail our proposals for economic and monetary union, and we have produced treaty language to that effect. There is now very welcome evidence that a number of European nations are now following our proposals and moving closer to us.
Mr. Matthew Taylor.
Number 6, sir.
I refer the honourable gentleman to the answer I gave some moments ago.
Mr. Matthew Taylor.
The Prime Minister may be aware that within the last fortnight, his Secretary of State for Trade and Industry has finished off 2,000 years of tin mining in Cornwall. That decision has been taken despite the pledge of government support and at the cost to the Department of Social Security and other departments exceeding the money saved by the DTI. Would he look again at the way in which departments operate, which can result in one department attempting to save money at the cost all round to the Treasury in excess of the savings, and at the costs of the jobs for those people who have lost that work as a result?
No, an overall look is looked on these occasions to see what is the right policy. But we have to examine this matter not just in the short term, but in terms of what is sustainable in the medium and long term. And that is what my right honourable friend will have done.
Mr. Ian Mills.
Could I ask my right honourable friend if he would comment on whether his discussions with Chancellor Cole, his speech last night, is likely to be more fruitful in achieving European unity whilst maintaining national sovereignty than the more fundamental and more difficult to accept proposals of Commissioner Delors?
The proposals of Commissioner Delors are not proposals that are generally acceptable in this House, and they are not acceptable to me. We have made that clear on a number of occasions, and nothing in that respect has changed.
Mr. Sam Galbraith.
I refer the honourable gentleman to the answer I gave some moments ago.
Galbraith.
In view of the Prime Minister's strong words against the property tax, which the whole House will have noted, can we take it then that he is now in favour of the poll tax, or is he still dithering in this matter?
The honourable gentleman is as unoriginal as his honourable friends. He will soon know.
Mr. Conor Gregory.
Number 8, sir.
I fully recognise the importance of an industry which contributes over $22 billion a year to the economy and provides work for 1.5 million people. The present arrangements allow for the separate interests of England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland to be effectively represented while ensuring the necessary coordination of the policy for the country as a whole.
Mr. Conor Gregory.
Mr. Speaker, in view of the fact that tourism is Britain's fastest growth industry and is a major employer at such centres as York, will my right honourable friend look closely at appointing a minister who has overall responsibility rather than to leave this important area to such junior ministers in England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland?
It would be difficult to precisely do that without raising difficulties over territorial responsibilities and the territorial departments. My right honourable friend, the Employment Secretary, has a coordinating responsibility for tourism as a whole in Great Britain, but the day-to-day responsibility in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland rests with my right honourable friend, the Secretaries of State.
Mr. Chris Mullin. Mr. Mullin. Mr. Roy Hughes. All right. Sir Bernard Brain.
Speaker.
Of course.
In view of the importance of tourism between our countries and all the other countries in Europe, with particular reference to Germany, is my right honourable friend aware that those of us on all sides of this House who over the years have worked hard to promote friendship and understanding with the Germans, who recall the very special efforts that the Germans made in our 3 attempts to enter the European community, warmly welcome the efforts that my right honourable friend has made and is making to establish a trusting and lasting relationship with the Germans in Europe. Will he recognise too that the relations between our two parliaments, it's involved a certain amount of tourism. The relationship between our two parliaments is closer and has been for many, many years than between any other two parliaments in Europe.
I entirely agree with my right honourable friend who puts it with great clarity. And I hope, in view of the clarity that he has just expressed that view, that he will see many German tourists in southwest Essex.